If you live around Fort Drum, you're used to military vehicles on the roads, planes and helicopters in the sky. Over Lake Champlain, the Vermont Air National Guard often runs training flights from Burlington, and it gets around near Plattsburgh. Even in the Adirondacks, military flyovers, mostly coming from Fort Drum, aren't that unusual. But in one Essex County town, some very local military exercises have been going on. And the guy who runs them wants to do more, including training with a howitzer cannon. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Morja Wealth Management, serving the North Country for 3 generations. MorjaWM.com. Securities offered through Hightower Securities, LLC, member FINRA, SIPC. Hightower is an SEC-registered investment advisor. And Kinney Drugs, whose pharmacists offer routine seasonal vaccines for older adults, including senior dose influenza, COVID, RSV, and pneumonia. Details at KinneyDrugs.com.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Tuesday, October 28th. First up, last month, the U.S. Department of Justice filed federal lawsuits against 6 states, including New York. It was seeking unredacted statewide voter registration lists. That includes trying to access information such as voters' social security and driver's license numbers. The New York Public News Network's Andrew Waite reports.
Last week, the League of Women Voters of New York State filed a motion to intervene in the case. The state's League of Women Voters Executive Director Erica Smitka says she's concerned that the government collecting such information could contribute to voter suppression.
We expect that they'll use this information to do a few things. We think that they're going to use it to continue to push falsehoods about election security and election fraud. We think they may use it to target potential political opponents. We know they're working in conjunction with the Department of Homeland Security, so they may use it for immigration enforcement. And, other things they might try to do are attempt to force states to remove voters from the database when, they're not eligible to be purged.
In response to an inquiry, the U.S. Department of Justice referred to a press release about the lawsuits with a statement from Attorney General Pam Bondi that says, in part, clean voter rolls are the foundation of free and fair elections. Reporting in Albany for the New York Public News Network, I'm Andrew Waite.
Fort Ticonderoga is adding nearly 3,000 pieces to its Revolutionary War collection. Back in August, museum officials announced they had raised $12 million to purchase the artifacts. It includes rare uniforms, weapons, and manuscripts that can be traced back to specific battles and specific soldiers. Some of the items are already on display. Museum officials say the collection will propel programming and exhibits over the next few years, especially as the museum celebrates the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution next year. A small town in the eastern Adirondacks has become an unexpected home for military exercises. A man from Virginia is doing contract work for the U.S. military on land he owns in the town of Lewis. Now he wants to build a shooting range for military-grade cannons. Some locals and a top green group are pushing back. Our Adirondack reporter Emily Russell has the story.
The Essex County town of Lewis is home to about 1,300 people. It's just up the road from Elizabethtown and a few miles east of the Jay Mountain Wilderness.
We moved here and live here because of the quality of life. It's a quiet, small town.
That's Lanita Canavan. She grew up in Lewis and now serves on the town board. In mid-September, Canavan's phone started ringing off the hook. Folks were wondering why military helicopters were flying low over town.
I've got neighbors wanting to know, are we under attack? We've got people with PTSD that are being affected by the noise.
The helicopters were part of a military exercise known as Jaded Thunder. It took place over a 2-week span in September and was overseen by Michael Hopmeyer. He's an engineer based in Virginia and owns about 380 acres of land in Lewis. He's spent his career doing contract work for the military. A lot of locals in Lewis were caught off guard by Jaded Thunder, so Hopmeyer scheduled a town meeting a few weeks later. He spoke to a room of about 75 people.
People who were participating in that exercise were active duty military. They were active duty Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps.
This is audio from WCAX.
They were also foreign units, again, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, who were here training to try and meet certain standards.
Hopmeyer declined to be interviewed for this story, but did speak to NCPR on background. He says he's hosted hundreds of military experiments and exercises in Lewis over the last decade. Everything from small-scale drone tests to one training that involved more than 200 people. It may seem strange that a private citizen is hosting military exercises on private land in the Adirondacks, but the town of Lewis doesn't have any zoning laws in place to regulate how people use their private property. Town Supervisor Jim Monty explained that fact to the folks at the meeting back in September.
That'd be no different than me telling what you can do on your property, because we don't have the local laws or the zoning.
But the Adirondack Park Agency does have laws regulating certain uses of private property. In 2021, Hopmeyer submitted a permit application to the APA to add a weapons range in Lewis. Specifically, he wants to study the internal ballistics of a 155 millimeter howitzer, which is kind of like a modern-day cannon.
Stand by! Fire!
This is video footage of U.S. Marines firing off howitzers last year. When Hopmeyer first applied for an APA permit, nearly all the public commenters opposed the project. Emma Jean Okuski was against it back then and is still against it today.
When this blasting starts, how do we know that that's not going to split our foundations on our houses? Or how do we know that those pollutants aren't going in our wells?
Hopmeyer said he chose the location of the weapons range in part because of the natural sound barrier of the sloped property. In his communication with the APA over the years, Hopmeyer has said the sound from the weapons range won't be louder than the blasting noise at the local mine in Lewis. And he said he won't be using any lead or potential contaminants at the range. The plan is to shoot solid steel ammunition into a cargo container filled with sand. If the APA approves his permit, Hopmeyer will be allowed to shoot up to 30 times per year on weekdays between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. While most public comments on Hopmeyer's initial application were negative, some folks were and still are in favor of it.
It has to be done somewhere, so why not here?
That's Ben Pocon. He's a forester in Lewis who's done some work for Hopmeyer, though Pocon submitted his public comment before that work. Pocon doesn't think he'll be bothered by the weapons range. He believes the local mine is noisier than the range will be. Plus, Pocon says he's pro-business.
If there is someone locally who is bringing new enterprise to the area, I am generally going to be supportive of that.
The Adirondack Park Agency is expected to review Hopmeyer's permit at the next board meeting. Rocky Aguirre, who leads the Adirondack Council, says he thinks the project deserves deep scrutiny.
The potential for negative change is significant here, and unless we can be convinced otherwise, it doesn't feel like the right fit for Lewis or the immediate vicinity.
But the APA board can't just deny a permit. Before doing that, the project would need to go to an adjudicatory hearing. It's a public forum overseen by a judge where both parties present evidence and arguments. The APA hasn't held an adjudicatory hearing in more than a decade, but Aguirre says this project is unprecedented here in the park and thinks it's controversial enough that it warrants a hearing.
Our core concern is that without an adjudicatory hearing, we won't get the science and technical expertise to be brought into this process that would help inform the APA staff and board.
The Adirondack Park Agency is accepting public comment on the project through this Thursday, and it's expected to review the permit at its board meeting on November 13th. Emily Russell, North Country Public Radio.
Hey, I can't even believe how successful our fall fundraiser was. I was away and I missed it, but what you did is incredible. NCPR listeners donated over $500,000 to support this local, grassroots, fact-based journalism we do here. It's so important. It's so fragile. And clearly you know that, and you responded. So thanks so much. We have so much work ahead of us, having lost all of our federal funding. But for today, we celebrate. Thanks for making public radio in the North Country possible. More news all the time at ncpr.org. Music today by Patricia Julian of Burlington and Gretchen Kohler and Daniel Kelly of Potsdam. I'm David Sommerstein, North Country Public Radio.